Hey guys, and welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. Today I'm going to be doing Applied Energistics because I have had a couple of requests for that. I am here in my basically tutorial world. I went ahead and this is where I showed off the boilers last time. I did want to mention about the boilers. I did not do a tutorial Tuesday on the high pressure boilers, and the reason that I didn't is because there's really not a lot of content that I haven't gone over. The only difference between the low pressure and the high pressure is basically the high pressure will store twice as much steam, but it'll also heat up to twice the temperature. With that, it uses a lot more fuel to get to that top temperature. Okay, now on to applied energistics. Your first basic applied energistics system that you're going to have is just that. Most likely, it's just going to be an AE chest. Now, I'm not going to go over how to create all of these. If you want to make them, obviously you can look in NEI and pull up the recipe. So the first thing you're going to need is a basic ME chest, right? You can look at it here and you can see that it's just like a normal chest. It has the slots, but you do have to have a storage cell for it. So if we put that storage cell in here, you can see they're still grayed out. We still can't put anything in there. What we need to do is provide it power. Now you can use Buildcraft or Industrial Craft power. It will take any amount of industrial craft power. So this right here is a high voltage. It will take high voltage without a problem. It's probably more than it needs, but it will take it. So you can see now we have our ME chest, and we have 1K storage disk in it, and I can put items in now, right? It'll tell me that's how much I have. Now if I have more than that, say, so I'll get a couple of stacks of these, right? The wireless access points. You can see there it says 64. I can put in more than 64, and it still only takes up that one slot. Right. So even though it's 3 separate stacks, it still only takes up one slot. And you can see right here, it can store 63 types. This can just only have 1024 bytes, which it calculates by how many items are in it and how many different slots. So that's your basic ME system, right? You can't get much more basic than that. The next thing that we can add is the controller. Now, one thing to note with the controller, power must go into the controller, and it will go from the controller to the rest of the system. Okay? There are exceptions to that, but you can see here on the controller, it'll tell us how much energy is used, which I believe for Industrial Craft it's a 1-for-1. For EU to units. For Buildcraft, I believe it's 1 MJ equals either 2 or 4 units. I can't remember right offhand. I believe it's 2. But you can see here everything that's connected to our system, right? And it's just basically, it's a chest. Now if we go ahead and pop down a access terminal right here, right on top of the network, we can now access any items that are in our system, no matter where they are, right? As long as they're part of the system, we can access them. Which leads into your next part of storage. Normally you won't use an ME chest when you start to get later in game. What you're going to use is a ME drive. So if we give ourselves one of these, we can look at it. I'm just going to put it right here. You can see here it has the space for those same disks that we put here. And keep a note, or one thing to keep in mind is when you, all of your items are stored on this disk. So if you pull the disk out, you no longer have any items in there. So if we put the disk in here, you can see we still have the items, but we can store more disks in a single block. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just put some 16s. right? So if I store that, so now I have lots of storage space, and if I go here, I can still access my system, or all my items in it. Okay, so that's your, now if I disconnect that, see it's no longer connected to the network, so these go black because now there's no power. What I can do is I can hook it up with an ME cable, and now it's connected again, right? ME cable will transfer power from the controller to all of your system. It will also transfer items back and forth. It's basically the same thing as putting it down next to it. So now that we have that, that's your basic storage system, right? If you're just starting off, this is probably what you're going to want after you can afford, the drive. You can put all of your items in here and access them. The next part of ME is that I'm going to get into is being able to interact with other machines. Now, to interact with other machines, you need to be able to export and import out of the system, right? Export means you're exporting out of the ME system. Importing means you're importing into the ME system. You also have a storage bus. Now, what the storage bus does is if we take just a regular chest, all right, let me go ahead and get one. Actually, let's do a barrel. So if I take a barrel and I plop it down over here, right, and I put a barrel in it. So now I have a barrel with a barrel, and if I go here to my ME system, I can't access it. But what I can do is I can put a storage bus on it, right? So plop down a storage bus, and it can be on any side. And we want to connect it with the ME cabling. And there we go. So now it's connected to our system. And if we look here, we now have access to the barrel that's inside this barrel, right? Maybe that's a little confusing. Let me do it this way. I'm just going to put these in here. Okay, so now we have those. So if we go here, we can access those. The thin barred wooden tile. Okay, so now you can create external storage. It doesn't have to be in these disks here. And that's one thing that I have in my Let's Play, is I have external storage for barrels, and then I have it set as a priority higher than the priority here. So what will happen is it will always fill up the barrels first. Okay, so now you have your basic storage and your external storage. Let's go ahead and use another machine. Let's go ahead and use let's use an induction furnace, and for that I'm going to need a lever. And I'm going to plop the induction furnace right next to, actually I'm going to have to downgrade the power. So let's do that. Let's do a medium voltage solar, because it will take medium voltage. So if I plop this down here, you see it's, there we go. It's starting to fill up its power. It's nice and happy. And I'll go ahead and turn it on. Right, so that way it starts heating up. So what I want to do here is I don't want to put a storage bus on here, because it's not technically a storage device. It's not a chest, it's not a barrel. It will work, but it's not going to work the way that I want it to. So what I want is I want to use, get rid of those. We're done with these for right this second. One thing to keep in mind is that with the ME controller, you only want one per network. Okay, so now what we can do is we can look at the import and export bus, right? So we want to be able to import into the system, right? Into the AE system. So let's go ahead and put that import. Now, if you notice here, imports do not have an interface, basic imports. That means that it's going to just suck items into the network. You cannot tell it what to do. Right, so we'll go ahead and connect this up. So now we have an import into the system, right? Which basically means if I go to throw anything in here, let's say we throw wood in here and turn it into charcoal. If I take spruce, just any kind of wood, and throw it in here, it will cook it up. And once it cooks it up, the charcoal will be sucked into the system. And you can look here and see now we have charcoal. Okay, and that's pretty awesome. But it's a little bit manual, right? So you have a couple of different options. I can use an export right on the top, right? Just any open side. And the export does have an interface. I can tell it the basic export to export one item, right? One type of item. So if I get myself a whole bunch of spruce and I put it in my system here, all but one. Now I can tell it that I want to basic export spruce wood into this machine, and it will constantly fill it up. And you can see it's coming out of our system here. So what will happen is it will constantly fill this up and then suck out the results because of the import. So that's nice, but what if I don't want it to convert all of my wood? Well, what I can do is I can put, let's just say I want it on demand to get my wood. Well, let's start getting into the crafting. So let me go back to Applied Energistics here. And we can get some interface blocks, and we want a pattern encoder. We also are going to want some blank patterns, which are needed to be used with the pattern encoder. So there we go. Pattern encoder doesn't require energy, just requires blank patterns. So what I can tell it is now I can get a piece of spruce and a piece of charcoal. And what I can tell it is one spruce, now it'll automatically fill in, but I want to take that out, equals one charcoal, right? If you provide one spruce, one spruce wood, it will create one piece of charcoal and encode. Right, so what I can do now is I can put an interface block right here, right? And say it was on the side or something like that, I can actually wrench it and tell it which direction to put items. Okay? So now I have this interface block here, and I can tell it to export wood, and it will keep one wood in this interface block. Now that's nice in case you want to interact with it with, say, BuildCraft or something like that. You can suck items out. And anything else that goes in here will automatically be sucked into the system. It'll only keep what it's told to. In this case, I don't want to. But what I can also do is I can tell it to use crafting recipes. And in this case, we put our pattern in here, and I can tell it I want to craft charcoal with it, right? So if I go over here and I take out all my charcoal, now you can see I have the craft option. So I want to craft 10 charcoal. And what it'll do is this ME interface will shove 10 wood into the system here. It knows 1 wood equals 1 charcoal. So it'll go ahead and put them all in here to get cooked up, and then the import bus will suck it out of the machine as soon as it's done. So now I have 10 charcoal. Now, that's how you interact with different machines, but what about if you just wanted to do vanilla crafting? What you can do is build a multi-block structure that will craft for you. Right, and let me show you what I mean. If we go ahead and get, it's made out of these 4 items: the assembler containment walls, the heat vents, pattern provider, and crafting CPU. Now, the pattern provider and the crafting CPU do special things. The containment walls and the heat vents are basically just the outer shell. So I'll show you those first. What you can do is you can make it a 3x3 by 4 is the smallest, I believe is the smallest that you can do. So let's go ahead and start with the smallest here, because most likely that's what you're going to start with. These do cost quite a bit of resources to create, and what you want to do is you want to take the containment wall and you want to build the outer edges. Right? It has to be every edge. The internal faces you can leave empty, but you have to build it like this. Now, I could always make it taller and wider if I wanted to, but this is the smallest that you can make. So now what we need to do is we need to fill up these edges with heat vents. Okay, except for I don't want to fill up the last one yet, because something else needs to go inside here. And that's why I was talking about these two. The crafting CPU makes you craft faster. So let's go ahead and put that in there. The pattern provider, which you must have at least one pattern provider. The pattern provider lets you have your patterns in it. The more pattern providers, the more patterns that you can have. The more crafting CPUs, the faster it will go. But you can see you can't do two pattern providers and a crafting CPU with the smallest. So that's why you can make it bigger and you can change which ones you want. If I wanted, I can have two pattern providers or a pattern provider and a crafting CPU. Like I said, you must have at least one pattern provider. So now I can put my heat vents on. And then you can see the pattern provider, how many patterns it will hold. So each pattern provider will hold this many patterns. So now I can put my heat vents on, and it forms a multi-block structure. So if I connect it to my network, there we go. Now it's connected to my network. It's not any different, but it has pages. Now I only have one of the pattern providers in there, so I only have one page. If I were to break this and take out the crafting CPU and put in another pattern provider, and then close it up, you can now see I have two pages of patterns that I can do. So let's go ahead and make a pattern. So the first thing I normally like to do is I normally like to tell it how to make blank patterns, because you're going to need a lot of them. So what you can do is you can get all the materials for it, or you can shift. If you go to the recipe, unfortunately I'm in creative, so I have to hit R. If you go to the recipe, I can get all these items and I can put it in the pattern provider, or I can shift, click on the question mark, and it will put ghost images in there. And you can see it'll make a ME blank pattern. So if I encode that, and I come over here and I put that in there, it'll show what it'll make. Now this is what it needs: 2 glass, 3 glowstone dust, some Certus quartz, and some iron. So I can go here and I can request one, or 2. Let's go ahead and request 2. Well, we don't have the items in here to make it, but it's not going to tell us that it can't. For it to tell us that it can't make it, we need a crafting terminal, or the crafting monitor. So if we put the crafting monitor right here, maybe not right there because we still want our power. We'll just put it right here. So if I look at the crafting monitor, if I tell this to craft 5 of these, and I look at the crafting monitor, it'll tell me what I'm missing. I'm missing all the items, right? So let's get a little bit more in depth, and I'll show you how the whole system can work together. Okay guys, so now we're going to put it all together. And what I want is, I just went out, say mining, and stuff like that. And I have a bunch of stone, I have some wood, I have some iron ore, and I want my system to deal with it automatically. So I went ahead and hooked up a mace raider, which if I was playing, I would already have by now. And I wanted to take one piece of coal ore, and I want to throw it in the mace raider. And I have it hooked up just like the furnace, right? So it'll go through and mace rate it, and then it'll suck it out. Okay, so it'll know how to do that. So now what I want to do is I want to take these, and I want to just take one of them. Right? And I'll throw it in the furnace. Make me one iron bar, or ingot, which will be pulled out. So now I have one ingot and one dust. Now what I can do is I can say one dust equals one iron ingot, right? That's true if we cook it. Now what about the ore? Right? I don't really want to tell it one ore equals two dust, because then I'll have to sit here and tell it to craft all the time. I want to do it automatically. So let's go ahead and tell it here. We don't really want to put this in there, because then we'd have to request iron all the time too. So let's do one other thing. Let's do the precision export. Now remember the regular export. Let me see if I have one here. I think I took it away. The regular export will only export one item. The precision export will tell you that you can move items in here. So what we can do is we can tell it to move single items or craft, right? And I'm going to tell it iron ingots. Or I'm sorry, iron dust. So we want iron dust to always go in here. Whenever it's in the system, we always want it to go in here. And then it'll get pulled out. So there's two different ways that we can do this now. I can either go here and I can tell it to, it can make, I need to tell it to make iron dust. So here, you can shift right click and you can clear the pattern. So I can use it again. So now I can tell it one iron ore equals two iron dust. So I can either come over here and I can put this in here and it'll work. Right, it will work if I put this on make or craft. Let me see. Yeah, move single items / craft. It should start throwing that in there, and it's doing it automatically. It's pumping out my ore, and it's making... Why is it making refined iron? Did I do that by accident? Okay, so that's one way. It will go ahead and pull out your iron because it's crafting the items to put in here. Now it's fine. It's a bit slow, but it works. The other thing that I can do is I can take this out. Right, so now it'll stop macerating. The other thing that I can do is I can put a precision precision export here, and then hook it up, and I can tell this to always send all iron ore this way. So now it'll just go ahead and make the iron dust. Now that's a little bit faster. So what I can tell this, instead of crafting, just move a stack, because now it's automatically making the dust. So if you look here, all of our iron ore got pulled out, all of it, and shoved right in here. Now all the dust that's hitting the system is automatically being smelted. So that's how you can set up, say, an automatic, an automatic system where you just throw what you get from mining in here, and it'll go ahead and take care of it. There's one more thing. Okay, so now let's get a little bit more in depth into the crafting. Okay, so I want to make a combustion engine. I'm just going to hit R here. So I need iron, which I now have. I need a piston. That's not too hard to make. Iron gears. That's easy. I have iron. Glass. Well, I'm near a desert. Or I can tell it one other thing. So let's go ahead and make that. So the first thing that I want to do is the piston. And because I didn't even think of this, I'm just going to give myself some redstone. Let's assume that I already had some. But what I don't have is wood, right? I have wood, but I don't have wood planks. Well, I don't want to sit there and manually convert them. I don't want to make all this stuff, right? So I want to tell my system how to make it. So if we go over here, we can tell it wood. It already knows wood planks. So now I can go ahead and throw this in here. So now we know how to make wood planks. Sweet. I am going to go into recipe mode now. There we go. So now if I go to the combustion engine, I need iron. I have that. I need glass. Well, how do I make glass? I need sand. Well, there's another way. I can tell... I can just throw it in here so I can get a piece of sand. Now I have one piece of sand, and I can tell my system 1 cobble equals 1 piece of sand in code. Throw that in here, so now it knows how to craft sand with 1 piece of cobble. And then I can make glass from sand. And no. Oh yeah, I need to craft. So let's craft 1 piece of sand because I need one. And there we go. And I can tell my system 1 sand equals 1 piece of glass. As long as I put it in here. And I don't need this anymore. So I can shift right click. So now my system knows how to make glass. That's pretty sweet. So now we have glass, we have iron. Well, let's make a piston. So we need cobble, wood, iron, and redstone. Easy enough. I don't even need to have a piston. I don't need to make one. I'll shift right click and code. It's a vanilla recipe. So now I can make a piston. Well, let's make wood gears. So to make sticks, we need 2 pieces of wood. In this case, we want oak. That's not right. You use planks to make wood. That's weird. Huh. Okay. Let's do it this way. 2 planks equals sticks. NEI is just being funky. So now we can say 4 sticks equals 1 wood gear. Right? See how I'm going faster and faster? That equals 1 stone gear. Where it's getting easy. 1 iron gear. And 1 combustion engine. And that's sticks, iron, stone. Yep, that's everything we want. So now those are all vanilla recipes, so we can throw them all in here. Okay. Now what's really cool is now that I taught my system how to make this, say I wanted to make a different kind of engine that required these gears, or a quarry that required these gears, my system already knows how to make them. So now I should be able to go here and craft 3 combustion engines. And if I look here at my crafting monitor, you can see what it's doing. It's taking my wood, it's crafting it into sticks. It's taking the sticks, it's crafting them into gears. It's pulverizing the cobblestone down to make sand, to make glass. And we now have 1 combustion engine. So now it's working on the second one. Pretty sweet. And there is a lot more to Applied Energistics, but I don't have the time to go over everything. There is a wiki for Applied Energistics that will be in the description here. This is the basic machines that you will be using, so this should get you very well started into using Applied Energistics. And with that, I will see you guys later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Everyone counts, and feel free to leave any comments on any of the videos. I do try to read them all, and if I can, respond. And with that, I will see you guys later.